With this coming school year, we're heading into year 3 of our strategic plan, and it's an exciting time. Many of the initiatives that we've been working at the ground level with are starting to come into fruition, and we're seeing the fruits of our labor. We've been fortunate to see an increase in our student performance scores on our state tests, which those scores are going home the beginning of this week to our families. So I think we're seeing that the hard work that we've been doing, when I say we, I mean our community, our staff, our administrators, our students, it's paying off. It's paying off. So we get to start looking at what's coming next. And I think now that we've built the foundation, it's time to put up the house. So we're going to be already talking about next steps in regards to our strategic planning process. We are in the middle of seriously discussing teaming. We're going to be involved in an initiative called SOAR, which is part of our strategic plan. It's a statewide initiative where we're going to be meeting monthly in Columbus with other participating districts. And when we're talking about the big initiative, inquiry-based learning, we want to make sure that it's more than just maker spaces in each of the buildings. We want to make sure that is happening at the instructional level in the classrooms, that we're providing our teachers and our staff the resources and the background to be able to do that. So I'm excited for the 2019-2020 school year. We got lots of great things coming, and going around, I visited every building last week, just a very positive vibe in the buildings. But no doubt, after having a starting first full week of school, that our students are looking forward to the upcoming 3-day weekend. Board meeting locations. We've been holding our work sessions in the Professional Development Center, which is on the back of the high school. We've had some discussions about other locations that might be more comfortable and more personal to hold our regular board meetings as well. One thing that's important to us is to continue to be able to tape these meetings and have them available through the community television station as well as on our website. Well, for a small amount of money, we're going to be able to move our equipment from this room into the Professional Development Center. And right now, the goal for that timeline is to have us in there for our next regular meeting in September. Now that won't be set in stone until we really take a look at the equipment that needs to be moved, where it's going to be, and if we will need anything supplemental to make that happen. But from a safety standpoint, we're all kind of stuck here. There's only the 2 exits in the back. I think that's going to be a positive. Also from a handicap accessibility, to have the ability, if we do have somebody who has difficulty with stairs, it'll be much easier for them to participate at the podium. And again, I think it'll develop more of an atmosphere where it's laid back and it's us working together with the community. The other opportunity that's going to provide us is, and I know this has been a concern of some of our board members, is since we'll be moving the equipment, we'll be able to record our work sessions as well and make our work sessions publicly available as well. I will let everybody know for sure in the coming weeks as I work with our technology department as to that date, but right now the goal is for the regular September meeting. OFCC and redistricting update. I'm going to ask Mr. Burkhart to come up and talk about the OFCC and where we're at. They have been in the district. I think we met with them early August or so. One thing I want to make sure, and I am going to be putting out a communication, whether it's through a video or whether it's through a letter to the community. I wanted to wait till we got into school, but I have received some questions about what's going on with redistricting and when is that going to happen. And I want to make sure that the community knows that this is not going to be a speedy process. It's going to be a slow process because we want to work with outside agencies to make sure we're making the right decisions And furthermore, we want to make sure that we're making the right decisions for Medina City Schools and that we're not sitting down in another 5 years and saying, hey, we need to redistrict. So we're trying to think for the long haul. So, John?
Okay. We're in the third week of the assessment. They've been through, of course, our big buildings, the high school, our 2 middle schools. Then last week they were working through some of the elementaries, and today they're here. They were at Garfield, Fenn today. They have Canavan, Northrop, Evolve, and I think that pretty much concludes all their actual tours of the building. They sent a team of 4 people, assigned each person to a different area. One was doing like the exterior grounds, including the roof and exterior envelope of the building. Others were looking at the infrastructure of the building. One's looking at furnishings, so they're even getting down to looking at, you know, how the buildings are furnished and what the condition of the furnishings are, the age of our systems, what's expected to fail within the next few years, what's the life expectancy. So we're hoping to see a draft report next month. We're pushing for that, so they'll share that draft report with us so we can go through it, make any corrections if they did get anything incorrect, and then they'll go back and formalize the report, and then we'll make sure it gets shared with everyone. So, yep. Thank you.
And the OFCC work for us, I have to mention that's not costing us money. So it's a program through the state that's funded through the big tobacco money that's allowing us to look into these opportunities and may result in some financial support if there's a decision made that anything needs to be done with our facilities. The other piece to this, and timing-wise, it was just perfect because when we sat down with the architects who are currently going through the district, one of the things they look at is school safety. And we have been very proactive over the course, especially over the course of the past year or two, to really get into our buildings and make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do to provide the safety of our students and our staff. So they're just going to help in that process. Last thing I have for discussion or to share is MCTA negotiations. I'm happy and excited to be able to present a contract that MCTA ratified just last week. We spent quite a bit of time in negotiations. One thing that I've said to multiple people, and I've been in too many to count negotiations in at least 3 different districts. And this was a very different process than I've gone through in other districts. And I mean that as a positive. The amount of discussion, the amount of collaboration, the student-centered focus is like something I've never seen in other negotiations. To not sit across the table from each other, but to sit at the table with each other and talk about what's best for our teachers as well as what's best for our students and our district was really refreshing. And that doesn't mean that there weren't times with intense conversation, because there were. But everybody was open to have those difficult conversations, which is a positive. It means we're collaborating together, sharing our different views, and trying to develop a consensus of what's best for the Medina City Schools. So later this evening, towards the back end of the agenda, I do intend to present the MCTA negotiated agreement for the next 3 years to our board, hoping for approval. We did put out a press release on Friday regarding the negotiated agreement. And the reason why we did that is because we wanted to, in working with David Hammond, our MCTA president, we wanted to make sure the agreement that we developed was available to the public and was posted publicly with our agenda, which it was Monday. So we felt it was important to get that information out to the media and the public so there was a better understanding of what was being laid out in the notes from the negotiations. Any questions for me?
Chambers.
Good evening. The district bank balance increased $16.19 million in July to $92,449,000. This is $869,000 below last year at this time. General fund revenues were above last July by $2.17 million. Real property and other funding sources account for this increase. More monies from advances of real property and the Medicaid settlement make up the majority of this increase. General fund expenditures were also above last July by $922,000. Personal services, benefits, purchase services, and capital outlay make up the increase which relates to the strategic plan, and we had summer projects that came through with capital projects. The sales tax fund balance is up to $3.79 million. The district spent approximately $167,000 in July. The largest portion was on the Canavan roof and on additional tennis court repairs. Oh, I'm looking at Canavan out there, that's all. You're welcome. The district received the second quarter payment from the county of $766,000. The rec center capital fund is down to $121,000. The district spent $261,000 in July. The district did receive $139,000 in investment income from July. This is approximately $47,000 more than we received last year at this time. And finally, our true days cash is at 298 days. Questions? Temporary appropriations. I sent this out to the board, I believe it was last Thursday or Friday. We are revising our temporary appropriations again. If you notice, I've added two columns. I added a carryover column and a total appropriations column. I'm hoping that you're looking at the total appropriations column because that's what I'm going to be presenting to the county here, not tomorrow, but Wednesday, when we submit our appropriations to the county. The reason I added the carryover was because carryover monies are basically encumbrances that have not been paid at the end of the fiscal year. So we're looking at making payments out of the encumbrances so that we could move forward. The revisions for the temporary appropriations included food service. They needed more funds here so they could basically make purchases of their food at the start of the year. We also had change from our general fund to our 016 fund. This was for, Tina, remind me what this was for. $24,000 for makerspaces, that's right. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember that at all. And then we also added in our revisions for our title grants. Questions? Okay, thank you.
No questions? Board communications? Any board member wish to share anything? Go ahead, Val.
Sure. Mr. Ross and I sat in on the Finance Committee last Wednesday. The agenda included discussions on House Bill 166, which pertains to the school funding in the biennial budget. Never can say that. Dave also reviewed the temporary appropriations amounts, which we just looked at, and the general fund spend down. We touched briefly on our investments, and Dave advised the majority of our investments are currently in CDs. The topic of county reappraisals came up, and he reminded the committee that when property taxes go up, it doesn't mean the district collects more money. When the levies are passed, it's a snapshot in time. It's what the house was valued at. However, the state looks at it differently and says property values are higher, so we can decrease the state portion of the funding. I'd like to remind the community that the Finance Committee welcomes anyone to come to our meetings and encourages questions.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just wanted to share it was It was a pleasure to be at some of the various ceremonies coming as the school started. For me, especially the new teachers that we welcome into the district. Very encouraged with the quality people we're having and the excitement that they had listening to them. One in particular saying he had no reason to leave where he was at until he heard there was an opening in Medina. I am very thankful that people are looking at things like that now. I think we're definitely taking a step in the right direction. I appreciate the work by everybody, administrators, our staff. Our staff have been here a long time, doing a great job, still doing a great job. And when you sit in on one of those things, it's like, yeah, something good's going on. So thank you.
It was a busy summer with projects and new hires and a lot going on. Curriculum committee met in August, and we learned more about the SOAR program and some of the other things that are coming up. We're excited about. Our next meeting is September 16th. Policy committee met, and there's a first reading tonight on the agenda. And we will also, I think we're scheduled to meet next week as well. I had the good fortune and opportunity to attend Almost Maine, which was the one of the summer enrichment workshops for the theater. I believe it was an 8-week program, and it was amazing. It was just a great program. So thank you, Mr. Maddie. I know Mrs. Busby, you helped promote that. Everyone that was involved with that, it was just a really great program. The students did a great job. It was amazing to me how much just they could do in 8 weeks. And just the venue, the set, the lighting, just everything. It was just really great, and I'm glad that students were able to had the opportunity to take advantage of that program. I also, like Mr. Eastwood, was able to take part in opening day, as well as the new hire. I was able to attend the end of the Amazing Race, which was neat to see all of the new hires come in and how excited they were to learn about the other buildings in the districts. They get a chance. Sometimes when they start, they only are in their building, so they got to see the other buildings, more of the Medina community. They met with the mayor on the square, so that was great to see their enthusiasm carry over at the finish, that they were still excited. Even if they weren't first, they were all winners, so that was fun to see. And then lastly, I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Sable. He was selected by BASA to be on the State Department committee, and that is going to really give Medina a voice down in Columbus, directly with the state superintendent and Department of Education. And I think that's great that we will have more, hopefully, of an influence down there. I know that's been a concern for some community members in the past and for the board, so I think that's great, and I thank you for committing your time to that for us.
What I'd like to communicate is I agree with Doug and Becky on the new hires. It's important that we greet them, and I think it's important for them to see us present. And I know the staff was busy this summer. I know Human Resources was busy putting all that together, and we really appreciate all the hard work you did. And as Doug mentioned, finding these quality candidates, quality employees, it's phenomenal when you're talking with them. Also like to thank other staff members who were here over the summer. I know Ryan was here putting together the one-to-one technology program, and I know that was the only thing that comes to mind, and that was a bear, but great job. So, and then through my travels throughout the district this summer, it was busy. It's not a vacation whatsoever. So thank you all for your continued support 365 all year with Medina City Schools. I would also, and another subject, I would also like to thank Aaron and our negotiating team and the MCTA negotiating team, Dave Hammond and his crew, because I have been involved in negotiations in my past life with a public agency, and sometimes it's not as smooth as what happened this time. And being a board member, you're kind of on edge. You want to get updates and all that. So it went really smooth, and I'm really proud of the progress that you made all summer and the final outcome. So thank you for the hard work you guys did in presenting the contract for tonight. And again, extend that to the MCTA negotiating team. And lastly, I agree with Ms. Parker, so I want to thank you for your appointment to the state. That's the state committee, I think,
That's through BASA.
through BASA. So congratulations. I think it gives us another link to our state representatives to see, if anything, keep an eye on them, see what they're doing. Thank you. Any other board communications? Okay. Action items, Mr. Chambers.
Yes, if it please the board, item number 1, Treasurer's Report. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the July 2019 Treasurer's Report. Sorry, just caught that. Number 2, revised temporary appropriations for the 1920 school year. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the revised temporary appropriations. Number 3, fund-to-fund transfer. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following fund-to-fund transfers. This is a transfer that was needed. We were looking for a donation to the art show, which never showed up, so we need to have monies available for the expenditure that was put forth.
If I can get a motion to approve.
I'll make a
Treasurer's
motion
action.
to approve the treasurer's action items.
I'll second.
Board discussion. Hearing none. Any member of the community wish to come down and make a comment on the treasurer's action items? Seeing none. Mr. Chambers.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Sable.
Donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations to the Medina City Schools. I'd like to point out the first one on here, which is the donation of photography services by Pamela Wagner. And specifically what I want to bring up here, I don't know if you all have noticed, but I have noticed that a lot of school districts have been jumping on our bandwagon when it comes to the bus safety. We were featured on the local news last school year for the work that Amy and Rob Travis have done through our communications and our transportation department to promote bus safety as well as laws and making sure people are careful when they're driving around our buses. So to see that community support that initiative through a donation is nice. Number 2, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreement between Ohio Schools Council, Lake Erie Educational Media Consortium, and the Medina City School District to provide book scans, LEEMC discounts, library book purchasing procedures, professional in-service programs, and such other services that are recommended by the LEEMC Advisory Council for the 1920 school year. This is an annual recommendation at the beginning of the school year. They basically provide the backbone to our library services so it can be electronic and online. Number 3, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Memorandum of Understanding between the Medina City School District and the Medina County Drug Addiction and Mental Health Board, the ADAM Board, to provide grant funds to the Medina City Schools in the amount of $6,000 to operate the drug testing program for the period of July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. So we have not put any financial resources into the drug testing initiative that went into place 3 years ago. I believe this is the 4th year of the program. We've done it through the support of the ADAMS Board. Several surrounding districts have taken advantage of that as well over the past couple years. Wadsworth is the big one that jumps to my mind. We will be sharing more detailed information regarding some of the information behind the drug testing in the district from the past year or two at an upcoming probably work session. Number 4, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the memorandums of understanding that students placed in the Medina County Juvenile Detention Center will be provided educational services by the Medina City Schools for the districts listed. And these are all other districts within Medina County. As I mentioned in the past, the teachers at the Juvenile Detention Center are Medina City School teachers, and it's Medina City Schools programming. So we need to enter into these agreements so that other districts that have students placed at the Juvenile Detention Center can reimburse us for costs. Number 5, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following revised policies for a first reading. The policies will not be presented to the board for final approval and potential adoption until the regular September Board of Education meeting. All of these policies are related to tobacco and tobacco use on school premises. These were shared with the policy committee recently. No major changes to the policies, some tweaks to tighten them up, and so they reflect our current practices. In addition to that, we are rated on an annual basis by the health department as to if our policies are in line with health regulation expectations, which they are, but we want an A+, so we want them to be even better. Number 6 is field trips. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trips in compliance with Policy 2340 for the 1920 school year. Our debate team's going back to Lexington, Kentucky. We also have all of our Camp Christopher trips on there. You can see they're happening throughout the year, but we wanted to do them all at once. High school cross country is going to Louisville, which they've done in the past at the end of September. And then our debate team, they just rack up the miles. Thanks, Scott. But it's quite an opportunity for our students. We're fortunate to have a coach like Scott who's willing to do this travel and give our kids the opportunity to go to Princeton to participate in debate competitions. Number 7, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the parental transportation contract, which allows parents to provide transportation for their child with special needs per their IEP to Medina City Schools for the 1920 school year, payment in lieu of transportation. I do want to point out that this is specifically for special ed students that have transportation within their IEPs. In some of those cases, the parents elect to transport their own children, so we provide them a reimbursement for doing that. Not only is it good for the parents because they're transporting their students, but it's good for us too because even with the reimbursement in terms of the busing for special education and the aids and things like that, it actually helps us financially as well. Number 8, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreement between the Medina City School District and Medina Hospital for its life support team to provide standby coverage for the 2019 home varsity games. This is the same coverage that we had last year for the football games. This is the ambulance that's at the stadium in case of an emergency. This is not a service that we pay for, but it's a service that they provide. A question that had come up over the course of the last 2 years is we used to have life support services at other events as well. We backed off on these services. The main reason is because they just don't have the manpower to be able to provide us with the services at all of our athletic events. The other piece is we're very fortunate in our community that 911 brings a quick response simply because of the amount of health support agencies that we have around our community. Number 9, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreements that students placed at Evolve Academy will be provided educational services by the Medina City Schools for the districts listed below. You can see we have quite a lengthy list here. It actually amazes me because the first year I came into the district, we had approximately 5 or 6 students in the Evolve program, and we were having the discussion as to whether to continue Evolve or dissolve the program. We got some new leadership in there in John Leatherman, and the program is at capacity. We have, 28?
Yes,
28?
and we've added an extra teacher.
And we've added an extra teacher and an extra classroom. So these districts are all students that are currently enrolled. We could have additions as we move through the school year, which is not uncommon with the Evolve program. I'm thrilled that we're able to continue to offer these services, not only for Medina City School students, but for surrounding districts as well. And with this, it's important to note that the program is self-supportive as well. It's self-funded. So it's the payments from other districts to place students that allows us to offer the programming or add a teacher because of the growth. Number 10, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 1920 school year. The first is for tuning the pianos. This is something we do on an annual or biannual basis as well. Grant Us Hope is purchase of Hope Squad curriculum and training for staff. Hope Squad is to reduce self-destructive behavior and youth suicide. So it's helping to provide mental health services. And then the last one here is Learn 21. Learn 21 is owned by Blackboard. So it's our educational software system that our students and our parents and our teachers interact with. I do want to note, I know 54,000, almost 55,000 looks like a lot of money. 4 years ago, this was about 110,000. So we've cut this cost almost in half, and that was by taking a look at the district and seeing how the system is being utilized and decreasing the usage. We've actually eliminated the Blackboard from the elementary buildings, and they're using Google Classroom in place of that. So we will continue to monitor our funds and be responsible, and if we're not adequately using a program, we're going to find something else that's going to work better. Number 11, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following new and revised service agreements for the 1920 school year. These are all special education agreements. These are all to meet the requirements or mandates of students' IEPs. Some of these services we elect not to offer within the district but outside of the district simply because we don't have enough students that require the services where it would cost us more to hire our own people in order to provide these services. These are all agencies that we have worked with historically, and the reason why there's so many here is because we're starting the school year. So we need to make sure these agreements are in place for the 1920 school year. And number 12 is personnel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel recommendations pending completion of all applications as well as human resources requirements. The two first ones that I want to point out here under administrative appointments, Mason Harper. Mason, if you could stand up, he's here tonight. I'm recommending Mason as our Assistant Athletic Director. He has actually already been in and out of the district over the course of the past several weeks. He's been spending a lot of time at both of our middle schools, getting to know the staff and the students, as well as working with Todd up at the high school for the overall coordination of the athletic programming. One thing that's really important to me is that he views academics as a priority, even as an athletic individual, and that's a must in my book in terms of an athletic director or assistant. So I'm confident we're going to be able to beef up our expectations in terms of our student athletes and their performance within the schools. Thank you, Mason. I have to say, he looks really sharp with that yellow tie and green shirt. Katie Hartung, I want to introduce as well. I'm recommending Katie for Coordinator of Special Education, effective September 3rd. Katie is currently the Director of Programming at, you're going to have to remind me, Julie Billiard School. So we're fortunate to steal her over to our district. She has a wealth of background, not only in special education, but leadership as well. The leadership she's going to add to our Pupil Services Department specifically to work with special education programming, as well as special education teachers, whether it's writing IEPs, whether it's making sure we're doing the best job we can in order to collect data and make the right decisions for the direction of our students. She's really going to be an asset. I'm excited to have her on board. And I do want to remind you, in Pupil Services, we serve all students within the district. And Mina will be quick to remind me when I call her the special education department. So it's another, Katie's brings some experience that's going to be very beneficial to our students, and she'll be working district-wide. Thank you. And I can't believe I have one of these already, but we have a retirement on the agenda. We have a teacher from Root Middle School, Debbie Bartolotta. Did I say that right? I don't see Brian. Okay, thank you. Debbie is retiring from teaching 6th grade social studies and decided not to start the school year. Her first eligibility for retirement is October 1st. She was officially hired in the district in 2002, but had substitute taught in Medina for 8 years prior to being hired. She is retiring with close to 25 years of teaching. Debbie was also certified as a master teacher during her time working in Medina. We wish Debbie all the best and will miss her. So thank you to her for her service to Medina City schools and Medina City students. In addition to that, you can see there is a long list of volunteers that I'm recommending this evening. The reason why there's so many volunteers, again, is because it's the beginning of the school year. One thing that I do want to make sure I point out, and Amy Busby through our community relations has done a great job with this, and I really need to commend our principals, especially our elementary level principals. We have all of our volunteers fingerprinted, FBI, BCI checked before they come in and they work with our students, and that includes parents that are going on field trips with our students down at the elementary levels. And you can imagine what a task that is to make sure that occurs. That's something that did not happen in districts 10 years ago, but I think it's common practice now in most, if not all, districts. Any questions for any of the items I'm presenting this evening?
Mr. Sable, just one question. The list of volunteers is really nice to look at. It's long. The community is really getting involved. Is that unusual to have that many volunteers this year? Or?
That is not unusual.
Okay.
We're very fortunate to have many parents, and it's not just parents, we have community members as well that step up and support our district, whether it's in the capacity, like I said, of chaperoning a field trip, or whether it's coming in and reading to first graders.
Thank you. Just want to thank the community for stepping up and doing that. It's wonderful.
I'd like to make a motion to approve these action items.
I would second that.
Board discussion.
I just want to make a couple comments. When you read through a list like that, and to not say anything is kind of crazy to me. To say something is at risk of not maybe pointing out some of the great work that is being done. But I wanted to point out a couple things. The field trips, when you look at that, the interaction kids get goes so much beyond, the responsibility, the opportunity. A lot of these, the parents are going with them, or a parent is going with them, so life experiences are there. and our schools being represented well wherever they go. Within that group, you see a repeat with Mr. Quaid and the debate team. I apologize. I just hear constantly how much that affects long-term opportunities for our kids. When they go on to college, the confidence that they have, the insight that they know they got to do when they approach the task at hand. I just want to give them a shout out. Thank you.
You know, I concur, Doug. Mr. Quaid is an invaluable diamond coach for the debate team, and it's just a wonderful program you have. Thank you. I concur with you.
I'm not quite done yet. Just a couple more. Roll that to the Evolve Academy. Just to reiterate, a few years ago, 4 or 5 people. Now the list is incredible of schools who put their trust in the program. Thanks for the support the administration has given, but thanks for your leadership, John, and your staff. It's a phenomenal testimony of hard work, and you're doing it for the kids, and thank you. And the last thing on the thing, I was going to make a comment. Some people look at the LST issue, and there's a lot of conversation about the lack of manpower. And if you're in the work world today, it's hard to find help. And so it was a very serious issue where, you know, LST units are needed everywhere all the time. And so I just wanted to reiterate for people who thought that might have sounded kind of like a line. It's a very serious thing, and we're thankful for what we have. I appreciate making that all happen too. Thank you.
I have a few items I would like to add as well. I would like to thank the elementary school principals for continuing with the Camp Christopher field trips. I think this is the 4th year that's been going on, and I just think it's a great opportunity for the kids. There's some kids that would not have an opportunity to do some of those things, and I appreciate that you're continuing to provide those opportunities for our students. I also want to thank the administrators and staff for looking at the Learn 21 and Blackboard. That's just another example of a way where we are able to still have great quality products, technology, but reduce our costs, use some resources that are available and free, like the Google Classroom. We're looking to still do a good job, but reduce our costs and be fiscally responsible. So thank you for all with working with that as well. And lastly, as a Hope Squad, I did want to thank the Adam Board for helping to fund that grant, and I want to thank Dr. Kwolek for pursuing that. I think that's a great program, and I'm excited to see that get started. Thank you.
Can I just ask, has the Adam Board has always funded our drug testing program?
That's correct.
Correct, okay. Thank you. Any other board discussion? Any comments from the community on the superintendent's action items, section G, action items 1 through 12? Yes. Mr. Kuhar.
Just quick question real quick. With the adding of new administrative salaries, there's been some concern out in the community with that. Can you talk a little bit about how that might be justified and maybe balanced via some of the retirements in the district and how that financial equation is working? Thanks.
Yeah, first I want to say that coming into the district 3 or 4 years ago, one of the things that was quickly evident is how much our administrators and our staff had been doing with so little. And I think something that wasn't fully realized until maybe some outside perspective is that the district was still trying to heal quite a bit from the levy failures as well as other situations that were going on at the time. in order to provide optimal services for students, it takes some leadership and guidance and coordination. The positions that we've added, and we've added 3 administrator positions this year. One of them was funded through our strategic plan process within the curriculum department, and the other 2 are added positions. We did not take the decision lightly to add these positions. That's why I didn't jump in year 1 or year 2 and make any requests for additional positions. But with a district that's our size, to have the individual attention and support to all of our buildings, all of our staff, and all of our students is quite a challenge. An example is on day 1, I visited every one of our school buildings, and it took me all day. And that's walking around and visiting classrooms. So to have the ability to actually go out and meet with special education teachers, to actually go out, and this is something we heard loud and clear from our elementary teachers, that they were feeling overwhelmed, and to be able to have the additional support of a specialist in elementary curriculum that can focus solely on elementary curriculum is so vital as we implement new programming down the road. With athletics, and I've met with several community members about adding an assistant AD, and I think I warned the board when I first brought up this conversation about adding an assistant AD position. And this isn't something that was just brought up at the end of last school year. It's actually something we've been talking about for the last couple years. And the reason why is because our athletic department is doing an outstanding job, but they're just staying afloat. And I don't mean that as a negative thing. And I think that's why it's been hard to see the need for some of these positions, because we have such good people in place, whether it's our administrators or whether it's our teachers, that they're not crying for help when they need help. They're doing what needs to be done. But to do what's optimally best for our students, we need the additional support. One of the things that we weren't consistently doing within our athletic program is evaluating our coaches. And yes, our coaches technically do have 1-year contracts and are non-renewed. My philosophy, though, is that we provide feedback and support to our coaches, just like we do to our teachers, to improve them, to improve what they're doing and working with our kids. The other piece, and I mentioned this earlier when I introduced Mason, is the academic piece. There needs to be a larger academic footprint within our athletic department. And that goes anywhere from the coordination organization of things like study tables to providing coaches support in keeping up on students' progress within the classroom. I can tell you from being a high school teacher and a former football coach that a teacher can say something in the classroom, a parent can say something at home, a principal can see a student in the office, but sometimes what that coach has to say in terms of the academics can be the biggest motivational tool at all for that student. So as we move forward, some of the expectations I have within the athletic department is that there is an increased emphasis on academics and involvement in academics by our coaches that goes beyond just checking eligibility. And I know Todd has worked very hard to do that in the past, but with the amount of students that we have within athletics, it has really been a challenge. The way that we're able to fund these additional positions is because we've been very conservative with the implementation of our strategic plan. And we are implementing every single component of that strategic plan, but we're trying to do it in the most fiscally responsible way possible. And what I mean by that is when we were planning 3 years ago, we weren't walking through the mud yet. So we worked with the community and the staff to develop ideas of the direction we wanted to go. And we had strong ideas and thoughts based off of our experience in regards to what it would take to implement some of those initiatives. But one of the things I said all along is even though we had the strategic plan laid out, we're not going to just follow the plan by robots. It's a recipe, and we're going to add things and make adjustments and changes that are going to make the food even better. So that's what we've tried to do. For instance, with the elementary curricular position, when we added that, we actually added less coaches, academic coaches, than we were originally planning to, and we're able to shift those funds. So with the savings within the strategic plan, that's the reason why I even came to the board and said, hey, let's kick this up a notch. We can provide better services for our students and more support for our teachers and coaches with these additional positions. And it does not impact our 5-year forecast or our current estimations in regards to when we're going to be looking at potential more operating funds. As a matter of fact, Mr. Chambers and I regularly have conversations about our 5-year forecast. We are committed to that 5-year timeline that we presented to the community when we put the first levy up on the ballot. And we are going to continue to work and are hopeful that we'll be able to even move it beyond that. So the decisions we're making are what is in the best interests of students academically in the classroom, as well as supporting our teachers. And we tried to do it the most cost-effective way as well. And again, I'm going to go back to the assistant AD position just because I think that's received the most amount of attention because I think it's obvious when you add for special education, you add for curriculum, it's really easy to see, well, that's going to impact students and it's going to impact what we're doing in the classrooms. And I'm telling you that adding an assistant AD position is going to have that same kind of impact at our middle schools as well as up at our high school. One of the biggest questions I got is, well, why didn't we put a teacher in that role? Well, it could have been maybe a teacher duty or part of a teacher's schedule. And my response to that, first of all, it was important to me to have an individual who's dedicated to our student athletes. So that's the first response to that question. The second part of the response to that question is in trying to be fiscally responsible. When we looked at the numbers, the financial figures to put a teacher in that role, which I've been in that situation before. When I was principal at Copley High School, our assistant athletic director, and we didn't call them that, I don't remember what we called them, but it was actually a health teacher that taught a class of health and then worked in the athletic department for the rest of the day. That actually would have cost the district more money. And when I say that, it's not that our teachers make too much money, because they sure don't. The reason why I say that is due to the contract and length of the contract and the amount of hours. Teachers are part of MCTA, so to put them in a position where they could be evaluating coaches, or to put them in a position where we'd be asking them to work outside of their contract in terms of days and hours, I don't think would have been fair to do or would have been financially responsible to do. And I'm confident with what I've already seen that Mason's going to work his tail off, and Todd's going to be a good mentor to him as we proceed forward. Any other questions? I don't know if I answered what you were looking for. I know I went on a little bit of a rant there, but.
Very thoroughly.
Did that answer it? You okay with that? Any other community comments on the superintendent's action items? Seeing none, Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Parkers,
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next action item is action item H.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve a 3-year agreement with the Medina City Teachers Association, MCTA, effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. As I was talking about the administrative positions, I also think it's important to mention that, yes, this agreement does cost the district money. The latest figures I saw was approximately $2 million over the course of the agreement, which is well-deserved funds to go to our educators to continue to provide the best services. Is it 3? Oh, I'm sorry. I see you flashing fingers. Is well-deserved for the work that all of our teachers do to continue to provide services. I also want to point out that some of these costs aren't just in the form of salaries, but they're in the form of supports for our teachers as well, whether it's additional planning time down at the elementary buildings or whether it's through professional development and training. Also noticed on the negotiations packet that's listed here that year 3 of the salary schedule is not included in there. We do have a draft, and again, this is all draft materials. The actual agreement is in process, which is normal. But we're going to, as a matter of fact, Jim is already having JMA work on getting that up there. Might even be up there already, but I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. Oh, you got it? 5 minutes.
Get a motion to approve action item H.
Mr. Ross, I wonder if we should just wait a couple of minutes and come back to this item since the other schedule, might be on there in 5 minutes from what Chris is saying. Maybe we come back to it in a couple of minutes. Maybe we skip ahead in the agenda and come back. Just a thought.
Is that a hard 5 minutes or like 5-ish?
Well, we have 2 other
Yeah, but we do. Okay.
2 other action items.
All right, so we'll go ahead, Dr. Kwolek, and we'll go ahead to action item I. We'll come back to H.
Action item I. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following adjustments to the pay-to-participate fees for the 2019-2020 school year and beyond. To implement a family pay-to-participate cap of $990 per school year, and to waive pay-to-participate fees for families on free lunch status. It is the responsibility of the family to provide appropriate documentation for free lunch status to the athletic department and treasurer's office. A couple things I want to mention here, and people are surprised when I say this, but over the course of the last 3+ years, I can't remember anybody ever coming to me with concerns over pay-to-participate fees, which just amazes me. And again, I think that goes back to the importance that the community places on those extracurricular activities, whether it's marching band or whether it's lacrosse, as part of the academic experience for our students. When we went through the strategic planning process, pay-to-participate fees did come up a little bit, but they did not come up as a top concern. The top concerns from staff and community really stretched around academic needs. This is a first step in looking at reevaluating our pay-to-participate fees. I think as we do approach our next strategic plan and as we approach the possibility of a new levy, this is a conversation we need to bring up with our community. This small step, I think, is a big leap forward, if that makes any sense. Allowing our students that are on free lunches, and those are families that really cannot afford to have their students play athletics, to allow those kids, some of our at most need kids, to be able involved in activities outside of school and the parents not have to stress over being able to do that is huge. In addition to that, we do have our boosters as well as our school foundations, which provide scholarships and support for families that do have financial hardships, and that is not going to change. By waiving the free students, it's going to allow more funds and scholarships to be available to other students that maybe didn't quite qualify in the past. So I want to encourage and thank both those organizations for their continued work in providing that for our students. With the family cap, we had no family cap at all. We had an individual cap of $660 per student, which you can imagine how that cost can inflate if a family has 4 children in the middle school and high schools, which we do have families that do. I just spoke to a mom at kindergarten orientation over at Heritage last week, and the impact to be able to allow their kids to be able to participate in all the sports they want to without the costs getting completely carried away is important to our larger families, and a service we wanted to be able to provide.
Can I get a motion to approve action item letter I?
I'd like to make a motion to approve action item letter I.
Second.
Board discussion?
I have a quick question. When you are totaling or adding for the sports in that cap, is it also a combination of sports and band? So that if it's an athlete and they're also in band, the fees go together?
Yeah, it's anything that falls under the umbrella of pay to participate fees. So things like marching band is a pay to participate fee. What wouldn't fall under there is a lot of the club activities, which are not pay to participate fees, they're club fees.
Thank you, Mr. Sable, for making this recommendation to us. I know the board has kind of talked about this for the last several years, and something that we hear out in the community. And even though a lot of families that are used to playing club sports may say, well, 330 is not that much, that's just 1/4 of a club sport. The thought is not everybody plays club sports, and we really want the sports to be accessible as best they can to all students, not just ones that have had a club pedigree, and provide lots of opportunity. So hopefully this will really provide a lot of opportunity for kids. So we appreciate you recommending this to us, and we got numbers from Mr. Chambers, and I think it was between 33 and 55,000 that it might cost as far as in receipts that we would have gained otherwise. So it doesn't appear fiscally irresponsible. It seems like it's still within the realm of what what makes sense, but we didn't take it lightly, and we appreciate you looking into it and making that recommendation. Thank you.
I'd like to reiterate what Rob said. For years, I've been part of another group that has been desiring help in this area, and and there's a lot of wrestling matches that we've had that doesn't happen on nights like tonight. But you have made a good first step, and it's definitely appreciated. I know it comes at a cost. But I'm extremely thankful for taking the step that we did. One family with triplets starting their freshman year this year extends deep gratitude, and many that I don't even know about. But again, I really appreciate this particular step, and hope that we can find ways to keep moving in that direction. But thank you.
Any other board discussion? Any member of the community want to comment on the pay to participate action item? Seeing none, Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Action item J. J. Delegate.
if you don't mind going back to to the MCTA Teachers Association agreement, nothing against appointing our delegates for OSBA, but this is a definite priority this evening.
Action item H.
Action item H, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve a 3-year agreement with the Medina City Teachers Association effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve action item H, the Medina City Teachers Association contract. Get a second.
I would second that.
Board discussion?
Could we just take a minute so we can catch up to the agenda? Because we're trying to make sure that the schedule is attached that we want to look at. Give us a moment to look at it if we could. Mr. Ross?
Yes. Okay. So maybe we should then go to
Well,
J.
Just give it a minute. We can comment a little bit while we're getting caught up on some things, right? And I just
Board
want to
discussion.
reiterate the appreciation for the staff and their team and the staff as a whole to push together and to agree to ratify this agreement. The conversations have taken a long time, and they're not always easy, but it ended well. And you're right. We've seen a consistent desire to keep the kids first, keep the students first, keep the community first, and I'm just really encouraged in this agreement. So very appreciative to all parties involved, and look forward to the next 3 years.
Any other board communications?
I concur.
I do as well. Just want to echo the cooperation between your negotiating team and the MCTA negotiating team.
If I could just add to, I think Medina has some of the best teachers in the state, and we appreciate the work they do, and we appreciate the work our administration did to negotiate this agreement. And like any negotiations, you want it to be a win-win, and I think that there's a win-win, even though maybe there's a few parts that somebody might not be always excited with, but generally the final product, I think everybody's very happy that it's a win-win and that it's a positive, and that there's been very good collaboration that went on with our administration and the teachers. We thank you.
Mr. Sable, could you just clarify for the community the chart that was added and explain those headings?
Sure. When we negotiate salary increases, and this is the same for all school districts across the state, and it's not just teacher salaries, but it's classified as well. They work off of a salary index. When a percentage increase is negotiated, that increase goes on the base salary, which is the step 0. And if you take a look at the chart, years of experience going down the left-hand column, and then up at the top is educational experience as well. Employees have the opportunity to move down or across on the chart depending on what their experience is in the classroom, what their experience is as a custodian, or the amount of education that they've received to make them even more experts at what they're doing. So what these 3 charts represent, and the one that we added, is how the increases would impact each level of the salary schedule over the course of the 3 years.
Any other board discussion? Any comments from the community on the Medina City Teachers Association contract? And knowing that it just popped up, the schedule, you can always call or email if you have questions after the meeting. Seeing none, Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you.
Action item J.
And the last item on the agenda, this is actually the president's item, but there's a couple things I wanted to mention real quick. This is to appoint representatives for the business meeting at OSBA in November. I do want to point out that our goal is to have this part of the organizational meeting in the future, so you'll probably, hopefully see this in January when we do the organizational meeting. And also, if I recall, I believe Rob and Becky were the representatives last year. So items all yours.
So does anybody want to do it?
Well, Mr. Ross, I think in the past, we've had either the president, that's why I did it last year, and then Mr. Skidmore was our legal liaison, and I believe that's why he and I were the delegates, just to provide some more information.
Okay, so hearing that, I will serve as the delegate. And then I need an alternate. Somebody to serve as an alternate. Anybody? Anybody?
I would recommend Rob.
Mr. Skidmore? Okay.
I will make a motion to select Mr. Ross as the delegate and Mr. Skidmore as the alternate representing the board at the 2019 OSBA annual business meeting.
I'll second.
Do we abstain from that or no? No. All right. Just asking. Board discussion.
Thank you for taking those positions.
You're welcome. Any community discussion on the delegates to serve at the OSBA annual business meeting? Seeing none. Mr. Chambers.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Public participation. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to participate in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, the board president will ask for public participation from all other attendees. Please state your name, your address, and your affiliation. Keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard, and all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Any member of the community want to come down to the podium and comment on anything school related? Mr. Hilberg.
Good evening. My name is Brian Hilberg, 246 West Homestead Street. I just want to take a moment to introduce myself. I spent most of my life in Medina County. I've lived in the Medina City School District for the past 16 years. My wife, Mary, and I and our twin daughters currently live in Medina City. My wife is a speech therapist in the district, and my daughters are students at Heritage Elementary. I'm involved with several community organizations. I own a small business in Medina, and I served 6 years on Medina City Council. After City Council, I looked for other ways to continue my public service, and I believe that one of the most important priorities for our Board of Education is to ensure the best possible education for our students. With daughters in the second grade, I have many years to come to make sure that that happens. This November, my name will be on the ballot, and I hope to serve Medina City on the school board for my continued public service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hilberg. Anybody else wishing to address the school board at this time? Seeing none, I would like to make a motion to go into executive session to consider the employment, dismissal, discipline, compensation of a public employee or official, to consider the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or official, and discussion with our board's legal counsel of disputes involving the board that are the subject of pending or imminent court action.
I'll second.
Discussion? No. Okay, we vote. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you all for attending, and no action will be taken after the executive session. Thank you.